Good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday. It is R3, and we're excited to be coming to you. Man, what a gorgeous day. Rod, how are you today? I'm awesome. I don't know, man. For March, we're having some incredible days. The sun was shining, and the fact that it's still sunny out or still dusk is amazing. Yeah, I know. So you must be Canadian then, -2 and 12. So I think it was hitting 50, 55 or something today. So. Well, this is R3, and we took last week off to take a little bit of a break, but we're back at it, and we're excited. R3, we're really talking about three things of three. We're talking about body, soul, and spirit, and we're talking about restore, renew, and rebuild. Specifically, how do we restore, renew, and rebuild our body, soul, and spirit? The purpose behind why we're doing these is the fact that so often we can really focus on one side of the equation and forget the other two. Maybe we're so focused on our spirit that we actually forget to take care of our body and our soul, or else we're focused so on our body or our soul, we're very soulish, but we forget to take care of our spirit. So we really wanted to just start doing these and start talking about topics that tie in. And we're excited today. We're actually going to be talking about one of my favorite things. I have many favorite things. It was one of my favorite things, which is called mindset, because our mindset will determine a ton. And, Rod disappeared. He's a triangle now. Rod at different times has talked about, are you coming back on, Rod? There you are. You got your microphone, so you're good to go.
Just want to, I guess they couldn't hear me. And so I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me.
Can't hear Pastor Rod. That seems to be an ongoing trend. That's something prophetically we're gonna have to pray into. So Rod, you at different times, actually, before we bring on our guest, you have when you preach, you've said you've really had to work on being a glass half full, not a glass half empty.
And I spent a lot of time before I came to Antioch really working that out in my life, of that glass half full, meaning that for me there were seasons when if my car would hear something, clanging on it, before you knew it, I was already going, okay, so this is going to be into the garbage before you know it, and we're going to have to go buy a new car. And instead of having the aspect of, okay, you know what, this is all going to be okay. And, no matter what happens, right? That's the whole thing, right? It's no matter what happens that this is going to be all right.
Yeah. And so that is a mindset. What I'd like you to do, Rod, if you could, Joy came on a few weeks ago and had a great illustration of a train. I want to put that up for a second, because I think this really helps us to understand that how it functions. And the spirit is the engine. The spirit needs to be out front. The spirit needs to be leading. It needs to be front and center. It is the power. But what we're going to talk about today, we have the soul, which is the mind, will, and emotions. And I love the fact that the mind is in the front, because a lot of times the mind and what we think will dictate how our will and emotions go, and sometimes even override our spirit if we're not careful. And so our mindset is so important. And the way I like to say it is that our mindset is simply whatever our mind is set on or fixed on.
Right,
and
good.
So we have a guest today who is no stranger to Antioch. He's part of the body, our body and our family. And he's an entrepreneur. He's written 2 books now, and we know him and love him. His name is Ryan Bondy, and we're going to have him come on because one of the things that Ryan's great at is, and his heart beats with, is helping people with their mindsets. And so let's bring on Ryan Bondy, and we're excited to have him on.
Just give him a couple of seconds to come on here with us. And,
all right.
There we go.
Ryan is currently sideways. You're having such a good day.
It wasn't like that, was it?
There we go.
Straighten myself out for this interview.
You got to straighten that mindset out, brother. Come on.
That's right.
Hey, Ryan, welcome to R3. Anybody that has been a part of Antioch would know you. They've seen you around. So you're part of our church family, but we're bringing you on because the audience is a little bigger than that. So one of the things we really want to do is introduce you, because there are people that are going to be watching like, who's this Ryan guy? So, and Ryan, he wore the green today. I was so oblivious when he got on. I'm like, dude, why are you wearing so much green? But it is St. Patty's Day. So happy St. Patty's Day to everyone.
I've got my green on too.
I've got my plan on. So
there you
Awesome.
go. Green, black.
So Ryan, take a second for us. You know, you're a father, you're a husband, you're an entrepreneur, you're an author now. You know, you've been married for how long? You've been married to Megan for
Excited. Coming up on 10 years in May.
Woo, 10 years. That's awesome.
That's exciting. Big shout out to my family, because I know they're watching. So thank you guys for having me. And good evening to everybody that is joining us tonight. I'm really excited to be able to share with you a few things that have shaped the mindset that's brought me to where I am at, based on Pastor Jay's introduction right there. Yeah.
Awesome. And I love your journey. I've been able to be a part of it, at least over the last several years. And really, actually, you know, as we were talking before and just talking about stories quickly, I begin to realize how much has happened for you even in the last several years. It's kind of mind-boggling when you look at it. So we'll be able to talk about all that. You know, you've got the books in the background. I want to do a little shout out for your books, and I can never tell if they're backwards when we show them, but man, you're an author, 2 books already, which is incredible. I think honestly, that is a mindset right there that you had to put yourself into to be able to write 2 books. And so congrats on that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's amazing. Let me ask you this. Let's start here, because you've got Joyful Wealth was your first one.
Right.
Joyful Finances.
Yeah.
So obviously the thing that really, and you have a joyful Facebook group that you continually invite people to.
The Joyful Series. That's correct.
Joyful Series. Thank you. Why the word joyful? Why did you start there?
Yeah, such a great question. And I know you will recall during the writing process, you and I even talked about some of the visions that I was getting for the title page itself, and the imagery that it would include, and what kind of wording. And really, we prayed a lot into where God wanted this particular first publication to go, and how that would set the stage for whatever was to follow. And when we looked at all the different aspects of what the first book includes, it seemed like the theme that kept recurring was about joy. It wasn't about just being financially better off. It wasn't about having more time in retirement. It wasn't about getting through your daily tasks easier. It really all stems from being able to optimize the joy in your life in all of those aspects. So really what's happened, I find, is that the first book, Joyful Wealth, How to Put More in Your Account. Shucks.
Yeah, we've had every technical difficulty in the weeks past, so no worries.
So there you go with that one. That was good. Good catch, though. Okay. So what with Joyful Series, with Joyful Wealth, I really felt like we had an opportunity to highlight some of the significant, I mean, there's lots of little things, and we talk about some of them, but the significant mindsets that needed to be employed in order for us to really change the direction of our life. And some watching might say, well, hey, my life is pretty good, and so I don't need a major direction. This book is for those people as well. Whether you're struggling on a day-to-day basis to even see a little bit of joy, or whether you have joy in your life and you're just looking to optimize that to make it better, I really felt called to share with people our experiences as business owners of 30 years, as husband and wife, as parents, as investors internationally and locally, and to be able to bring all of that and say, you know, here we were 1,000 miles an hour going in one direction, and then suddenly we got a little tap on the shoulder. If you'll remember, about 4 or 5 years ago, and God made it real clear. Hey, your focus isn't right. You're headed down a path that's not going to bring the joy you think it promises to bring. And it was then that things really started to change. Not to suggest that from an early age, some of the mindsets that I had weren't a little different than most, but it seemed we were being challenged even further. When I look back at 2017, 2018, as you recall, the surgeries and our friends know the medical circumstances that we had to overcome. At that point in our lives, it really did seem like God was pointing us in a completely different direction than the one we were on. It was incredibly uncomfortable to believe that we had to start thinking differently ourselves. But now, just a few years later, I am overwhelmed with joy. And I just look to every opportunity to share that. Hence the second book. The second book is titled Joyful Finances, because it does specifically relate to some map out a plan and some strategies to help in a financial capacity. But if your mindset's not where it needs to be, it's unlikely that those strategies are going to help you. So
Right.
To your topic this evening, it all goes back to mindsets.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to share two things, and I want to dive into some of your stories, and that's so great. And I'm sure, we could do another one on just, wealth in general and the mindset for that. Rod, if you could put up for me, one of my favorite scriptures, because man, I've had to go after this. This to me is a mindset scripture, which is Romans 12:2. And it's not unfamiliar to the body of Christ, especially to Antioch. But Romans 12:2 simply states, do not be conformed to the patterns of this world. And I think, Ryan, in your story, there was some patterns to this world for all of us, right? Do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so when I think of the story that you're going to share, because I do want to go to that medical story that really was a pivotal time in your life that began to, I think, have you guys seek out a different way.
That's right.
So, there has to be this transformation of our mind as people of faith. It's not just, and I want to be careful because people go, isn't that just psychology? It's actually, it's the word of God, and psychology or science has actually proved it, that we need to think differently. And if you don't mind, I want to throw up Craig Rochelle, because I love this quote. So, Romans 12 talks about, transforming the mind. And I love what Craig Rochelle, he just wrote a book on this, and he stated, and I got to see it actually pop up on my screen before I can quote it. There we go. It says, but I can't read it. I'm old now. It says, our lives are always moving in the direction of our strongest thoughts. What we think shapes who we are. That's incredible. So our life is moving in the direction of our thoughts. And so take us to that point. So here you are, successful businessman. We're almost going to go kind of backwards in history for you, but here you are, a successful businessman. You actually, I believe you had 4, I think, or more companies running simultaneously, doing well financially. And then tell us what happens with Megan.
Yeah, so it was a pretty exciting time in our lives. The week leading up to, we'll call it the Catalyst event, we were able to host Christmas parties for our different staff at different companies. And that week, I believe there were 4 different events held in 6 days that had, if I recall, about 100 people in and out of our home that week. And so if you can imagine running a business, and at the time we had 3 beautiful babies in diapers, and anybody that's had to change 10 diapers in a day can appreciate how exciting it is to have 3 of them beauties at. So, yeah, those were exciting times. But in the midst of that, we were still trying to keep it all together corporately. And so we were hosting these parties. Megan was forced to step into a role at the Service Ontario office that we were under management of. And we lost one of our key staff. There was no one to replace her. Megan plopped in there full time unexpectedly and really had to focus hard. So naturally, she came home tired. And of course I joined her, and we would sit on the couch at night saying, man, when's it going to change? Right? We're working these crazy hours. There's barely any time. We prayed that God would give us children, and now we're looking for somebody to take care of the children while we tend everything else. Just, it was really like, whether we recognized it in that moment or not, it was certainly out of balance. And it was a tradition that we started when the children were born. That and anybody that's been around me long enough to hear about Advent conspiracy, again, that's a mindset that changes the way we look at Christmas. And so to implement that, when the children were born, we started asking our family if, rather than bringing gifts that maybe had very little thought or need, maybe they could bring non-perishable food goods. And then for my children's sake, on Boxing Day, we would package all these items and we would bring them down to the mission with the children. And it would get our children involved in the understanding of Christmas at a different level than just toys and gifts, right? So again, a little bit of an alternative mindset, even before some of the things that are about to happen. And so on Boxing Day, we get in the vehicle and we start driving, and Megan starts to share with me that she's really been battling a long-term headache that she assumed was just stress related. She went to see the doctor. The doctor said you needed some sleep and so forth. And it turned out to be a little more severe than that. By the time we ended up seeing a doctor, he ended up admitting Megan directly to Emerge, where they found that there was a blockage in a ventricle, which was preventing fluid from draining from her brain. And they essentially said, if we don't operate on her, she won't be with us in another 12 to 24 hours. And our world stopped. Everything that you think is important becomes a distant second.
That's right.
And so for the next several days, while our children were being tended to with family and friends, she and I sat at that hospital very uncertain of what the future was going to look like for us. And I remember sitting there saying, what am I doing? I've got this go forward attitude where it doesn't matter how many roadblocks, I'm going to get over that one too. And I really felt like I was my own God in all, I mean, for the lack of a better term, I just felt like I could do anything. I didn't need anybody's help. And it doesn't matter if everybody says this isn't healthy and don't do this. Little did I know that that's often God's way of speaking to us through other people. My mindset at that time was, focused in a different direction. But then the silence of the hospital really gave me an opportunity to receive some downloads, some really critical downloads. And I know it did for Megan as well. And so in the days that followed, we were able to really evaluate everything that we had been doing for the years leading up to that point and say, we dodged a bullet. Like, the doctor suggested that if we weren't there that day, I might be a single dad. And I just thought, suddenly it puts in perspective how important all that other stuff was and how the priorities needed to shift. And I needed to change my mindset in order to achieve that.
Yeah.
And,
what I want to do, I want to actually just stop there, because I think this is so important, because reality is right now we've been living in a crisis for the last year. And crisis has a tendency to, like you're saying, put everything into perspective. So try to describe for us, you were already doing it. Your mindset before was just go, go, go. Can you describe any more of your mindset? Because you really are about to have an incredible shift. And I remember, because you kind of came into our life somewhere around that time as well. So
just months before. I mean, we were so blessed to have been led to the Antioch family. And guys, if you're from Antioch right now watching this, I can't overstate the importance that the church body, the church, the people, not the brick and and stone that people think about when they see a church. The people that make up the church meant so much for Megan and I as we came through that. We know that our arrival at Antioch was nothing but God-led. And we are so grateful to God for bringing us there, and for all the folks that had a hand in our healing, and it's still a process. I know we're still healing and growing and changing, but my goodness, we are really grateful. So yes, we did just meet right before that, but here was my thing. Before I came to Antioch and leading up to this climax of craziness that just completely unraveled our lives, my belief was happiness was on the other side of my next business deal. And I just had to get one more deal, one more big customer, one more like grand slam business idea that is going to catapult us off in some direction of riches and fame and status and all those flesh desires that, now I realize were actually holding me back. They were holding me back. And I can say that because there were seven different businesses that we had at the time. And I was still in my free time, which you can imagine was limited when 3 babies in diapers, a wife that's working in the business as much as she can and trying to tend to the house. And my free time, I was looking for the next business. I was scrolling Kijiji looking for people that are selling businesses. I was on Facebook looking for people that wanted to get rid of businesses. And I remember coming across one and saying and the look my wife gave me, I knew that I was in trouble. Like, she don't even say it, and yet my mind was, even though one might perceive us as being successful from a distance, not being aware of what's going on in our lives, I wasn't happy. There was no joy. I woke up every morning because I absolutely had to get out of bed before the rest of the world woke up, because there just wasn't enough time. And then oftentimes I was up until the wee hours of the morning, trying to chase a happiness that was based on material and status. And I remember when, after our medical issues, and Megan's was the first, and then just a few days later, I went and saw a doctor about a neck issue that I was having, and he indicated that it was a miracle that I was walking, because I had three
vertebrae
that had fallen out of my spine. I don't even know how that happened, but they were leaning up against my spinal cord. And he said, "It's a miracle you're walking, Ryan. We need to operate on you right away." And I said, you can't. Like, I don't have time for that. I have businesses to chase and bills to pay and employees to feed and so on and so forth. So again, I felt this nice, gentle smack on the face as God kind of said, "Well, I know you think you're in control and you think you're headed in the right direction, but I've got news for you." And shortly thereafter, my feet were laid up for a little bit while they put me in the hospital also. And during that time, Meg and I had an incredible shift where we recognized that, gosh, we have 3 incredible children. They bring joy to everyone around us. And we're missing it because I'm out chasing some other form of joy. We had businesses that could have been more successful, but I was chasing other businesses, and so not that I want to suggest to anyone that there's a limit to what you can do, because I really am the no ceiling type thinker. I love when people come to me with ideas, and I'm on board with your message, Pastor Jay, about you got to have a bigger dream and a bigger dream. But you do also have to understand where the balance is and what you're being led to focus on. And that's pretty key, I think, if you're going to generate joy from anything. You certainly can't generate joy and burn yourself out chasing it.
Yeah.
There's no opportunity there.
So tell us some of the things that, because I know even in the newest book, right in the introduction, you start really kind of honing into some key mindsets that you put in place that would help guide you guys. So how did your thinking shift? Because that's a process, and you admit it. We're all still in it. You're still in it. You know, it's a day by day. But I did begin, you know, as a pastor in your life and a friend in your life. I began to watch you take steps, and we would have conversations, and you would, you know, well, I'm going to say one of the keys. You know, I know you really began to pray diligently about every situation. You know, was that something that you was an afterthought or even a thought before? And did this become a pivotal mindset in your life?
Yeah, sure did. I think so one of the changes, particularly to mindset, was that we'll call it pre-event, right? Before the medical stuff. I was a knee-jerk reaction type of guy. Something would happen during the day, and that would immediately catapult a whole bunch of feelings in me that would cause me to take a whole bunch of action. And I know as a business owner, there are times when it's absolutely critical you make quick decisions, and you're very convicted to those decisions, committed to them. But there are a lot of times, more times than I can count, where it would have been much wiser to counsel with my wife, pray, and wait for some directive. And when we went through what we went through, we were down. I want to suggest that it was probably about a 7-week period. And during that 7 weeks, we really saw very little of our businesses. We were trusting that the people that we had trained up would take care of them. And we focused a lot on the recovery of both of us and managing our children during that time. Of course, they were in daycare, so we were dropping them off, picking them up, and it was tough. Even back then, if one of them sneezed, generally they couldn't go back to daycare for 24 hours. So, it's interesting because I felt like now that I look back at it, God really prepared our family for this pandemic and the crisis, as you refer to it, so that we would be able to enjoy the joy that we've been optimizing since that time. It's really, it really has been an interesting season. And I don't want to play lightly on the fact that there's a lot of pain and suffering occurring. But that said, the mindset of seeking joy in all events and being able to find that silver lining. When Meg and I took those weeks, we said, okay, how are we going to move forward with our business so that we can not just enjoy it, but so that we can really raise our family instead of having the daycare and the parents and, aunts and uncles and friends. How can we focus on really where God wants us to go? Because that's something we hadn't considered before. I felt like we were supposed to go wherever I wanted us to go. And so it was then in those weeks that we had some amazing visitors, like Connie Gambriel came, Steve Knight and his wife, Linda, came. Those people came into our home when we were in that season of extreme uncertainty. I don't know how else to coin that period in our lives, but we were really being challenged on what was important, and they prayed with us. And so did Pastor Claude. The number of times that he prayed with us, and yourself, Pastor Jay, at the hospital. And so there were so many people, and that was foreign to me. So that was a mind shift in and of itself. We came from a church prior to coming to Antioch where it was a very common mindset there that in order to be the closest you could be, to the faith, I'm trying to walk this line carefully because I recognize there's a lot of people that have a similar belief, but it left us, Megan and I, feeling almost shamed for realizing success in our own lives personally. And so we struggled with that to the point where we thought, well, if God doesn't want us to be successful, I don't want to be poor. So, well, then maybe I'm just going to go do it my own way, you see? And so that mind wasn't right. There was a lot of not right stuff going on up there. And so then when we were introduced to the Antioch family, and we hear about prosperity and furthering the kingdom through our finances, and to he who's grateful, much will be given. And so we sowed, and we started to be grateful for what we had instead of looking for more and looking for more. And lo and behold, it seemed the more grateful that I was, the more I was given, which gave me an opportunity to give more. And so the whole thing just became this new paradigm of
That's awesome.
Maybe not chasing so much. Maybe we needed to shift to a time where we needed not to build business, but to give more of the business we had. And so we felt called to make some changes that reduced the footprint of our corporation. We went from having a very wide business base to being much more narrow. We streamlined a lot of our activity, almost to the point where it's near automated. And I thank technology for a lot of that. But I also have an incredible wife. So it's great to be able to work as a husband and wife team and be able to count on certain things being taken care of so that she and I can really invest more in family and in the church and in the school, the children and what they're doing. So yeah, I'm sorry, that's probably a longer answer than you were expecting.
That's good. And what I love about it, because what I'm really hearing, we showed that picture up, front. What I really feel like you're saying is that engine, which is the spirit-led, got back into proper place. I love that. You're starting to pray now instead of knee-jerk reactions. You're letting the spirit, which is somewhat new in this scenario, because you're like, wow, I can actually partner with the Lord in this. That spirit's up front. We got the picture up there, and then the mindset begins to reinforce what the spirit is already beginning to say, which I love that, So here you have, you scale down your businesses, you begin to focus. So talk about, and Rod, if you have questions, jump in too, so how did this joyful series begin to come out of this? Because I noticed, I'm on the Facebook group. And so when did that begin to kick in for you? Because I really see on that Facebook group, it's not money, it's not finances. You're talking about changing the way you think every day, trying to find the joy when you wake up. And let's be honest, there are poor people that are very joyful and there are rich people that are very sad and miserable. So we know that finances don't always make things perfect or easy, for sure. So what got you onto that vein? Because obviously in this journey, you were doing some mindset shifting on your own. Like God was beginning to shift that. What was the catalyst for it? And why do you continue this every day? Yeah. And I know Megan's a big part of that. And I want to give a shout out because I know she often posts things too. So Megan, great job.
Yeah, she does. I'm blessed to have that. So if you remember, you were present during the creation of the first manuscript. And although I caught a little slack, I felt called, coming home from vacation one time. Megan and I were away with the kids for the weekend. And on our way home, I said to her, I feel like it's time to write. She said, "But what?" I said, "I'm not really sure. I still have to sort that out." But it is what started the Joyful Wealth manuscript is getting these images of ways that are our own life. Like I really wrote this book and as an instrument, and I know this sounds crazy. So if you're somebody watching us and you're not from a believer's realm, this might sound a little crazy because it was to me. Until I really had to accept it. It seemed unlikely that this, if I was hearing it from somebody else, that I would believe this. But I would tell Megan, I'm going to go downstairs and I'm going to write about black shirts, for instance. And I've got a great story I want to share, so I'm going to write about that. And so my writing station was downstairs at the time. And then I'd come up and Megan would say, so how did your writing go? I said, well, I wrote for an hour and I put out all kinds of content. I thought I did a great job relaying the story about this black shirt. But when I reread it, turns out it was about gray elephants. And I don't even know where the gray elephant story came from, but this is some pretty good stuff right here. Well, the whole book came to be, I really felt like the Holy Spirit was speaking to me and I was writing it out, and that was my education. And so as I was reading it, I'm saying to Megan, listen to this. Like, no, really listen to this. I think this is good. And we need to absorb this. Right. And so, despite the fact that we appeared to have some monetary advantages in life and some, maybe some status or, some business success, the reality was we look at the material of joyful wealth and recognize that that's a teaching tool for anybody, that's looking to optimize the joy in their life. And I thought, well, okay, great. So we went through the publishing process and we have a book. Well, that's good. Who's going to buy this book? How many people are going to find this book? Today, I bet you if you go on Amazon, it's probably ranked around the 5 millionth book on the, it's nowhere near the number one. And so how do you find books like that? And I thought to myself, well, the Lord's put tools in our lives and Facebook happens to be one of them. I cannot claim to be a Facebook advocate. I actually did a boycott of it for several years. And, but then the Lord was speaking to me. He said, Ryan, you need to use Facebook as a tool for positivity. There's lots of negative out there. You're being invited to change that and put some positive content, something that other people can see value in. And so about a year ago, just a little more than a year ago, right about the launch of the pandemic, Megan kind of sat with me and we figured out how to create a page and how I could just put short blurbs on there. Well, of course, not much of my verbal stuff is short, as you can tell, but so those posts sometimes get pretty long. But I just started writing and I felt so good doing it. It just, and I kept looking at it from a business perspective because there's still a little bit of that mindset in me. And I'm saying, how am I ever going to make any money with this? And the reality is I probably never will, but that's not the point. This is about really having an impact on people and being able to change the way they experience their day. And, I've grew up thinking big, think big, think bigger, dream bigger. And suddenly I put a post out saying, okay, so how small can you think? Right? Like, can you think about how much joy comes from the fact that somebody invented a toothpick? Just things like that, right? Just to think small and try to extract joy from every aspect. And
okay, so right there, that's a huge mindset shift. I love, we were talking the other day, and part of the catalyst of having you on, we were outside, and I love the fact that you were talking. It was a windy day, but you went down to the mindset that thank God we can feel the wind on our body. We can feel the wind on our face. And, reality is, most of us don't think on that level, and therefore you miss the joy. You miss the opportunity to celebrate. And I think that's so important for all of us because, that quote I said from Craig Rochelle, that our lives are going in the direction of our thoughts. And if our thoughts are not filled with, and Rod, actually, it'd be a great time to put up, and I'll read it, Philippians. Philippians says, and this is Paul who's writing this from prison. He says, and now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. It says, fix your thoughts, that mindset, fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Keep putting into practice And I love that. And, this is actually something I'm like, man, if I could for the next 3 months practice this and work on it, it'd be awesome. Keep putting into practice all you learn and receive from me, everything you heard from me and saw me doing. Then the God, and I love this, then the God of peace will be with you. And I think, what I love about what you're saying in the Joyful series is that we so often, like, that's really funny actually, to go, hey, thank God for a toothpick, and maybe you don't care until you have something stuck in your teeth that's really bothering you. And I bet in that, I'm looking around for anything I could fold, a piece of paper that I can try to get that thing out, and so wanting a toothpick. And then when you have one, you don't think anything of it. You don't even thank the Lord. So, you're in this process. And what I love with the Joyful, Facebook group is that you're trying to get people to think, no, stop for a second and just think upon those things right now that could bring joy to your life. And I think that is so powerful because we get so caught up in the craziness that we're missing hey, we're all sitting at the table tonight. I know it's crazy, but hey, we're all actually sitting at the table tonight, breath in our lungs.
It's
Rod,
one of the things that for me that I've seen, because I'm a watcher. I like to watch. I'm a guy who kind of sits back and just takes a look for a little while. And although, so for me, we're all fathers here. We're all leaders here in this. And oftentimes when you get an epiphany, or if you get a shift or a change or something happens, it happens in us. We work on it in us, right? But one of the most beautiful things I think that I've seen in your life is that you work together with this as a family. And I mean, I can't wait till you write a book about Joyful Family. And that would really excite me to see that, because when I look at it, I see that you've not gone and said, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and now you're just off. You're off on another tangent, shall we say, on your own, just 100 miles an hour into the Joyful series. Now you're walking together as a family, and your kids are learning all these things. I've seen it. They're learning these things with you guys. Even, I think that it's beautiful to see the beginnings of all of this stuff, right? Because this is your journey, right? When we were at your house and we were over there and, looking at your board there and the declarations that you have for the kids and for the family. And so just talk to me about how you brought your family along this journey and that mindset shift for you.
Yeah. Well, it's nothing, again, short of giving credit to Antioch. And I know you guys didn't invite me, anybody listening, they did not invite me just to plug Antioch, but Antioch really did introduce us to some mind shifts ourselves, really about faith versus religion and being able to break religion off. So that really had a tremendous impact in our household and how we're raising our children. And so when we started to make the decisions and we were praying on how we were going to move forward after Megan and my surgery, one of the biggest criteria we had was, is it something that's going to bring our family closer together?
Right.
If it's not, it's probably not something we want to invest our time in right now.
That's right. Good.
And that's a whole change. That's a whole mindset change right there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I know of a lot of families that are really engrossed in their careers, but the spouses are in different careers. And so as they both begin to succeed, you start to see some division. And one of the things that I grew up thinking I really wanted to be was a farmer. And the reason I wanted to be a farmer was because from what I understood of farming 30 years ago in the Windsor, Essex County area, was the families worked together and the divorce rate was less than 2%. And I got to be something to farming because it pulls the family together, common goals. When they succeed, they celebrate together. When they don't succeed and they hit those challenges, it affects everybody and they all pull together. And so while maybe we're not farming crops, I really feel like our family's working together now. And I'm blessed to have such a supportive role in my wife and in my children, that no matter what crazy idea I come up with, they generally agree to it in some capacity, and they're willing to work with me and share some ideas on how maybe we can make it more interactive for everybody. Because as you know, my children are 5, 6, and just turned 8. They're still young, and I know that we only have a very finite amount of time with them, and we're so joyful about being able to spend as much time with them as we do, that if it doesn't turn into anything else, if we never start another business, if they just get to graduation and they move away and say, wow, we had a great childhood because our family was connected and we brought joy to others, I will meet my maker and say,
one of the beautiful things I see is that, and I think you did a lot of good things before you had this epiphany, and I think that we can find those good things, and we're so grateful to God that even in the midst of our craziness, He still shows us the compassion of finding good things that we're doing. But I tell you, I'm amazed at how what this has brought it to you is time. You said it earlier; it's brought time with your family. And you guys are capitalizing on that every moment that you can. And, a lot of people do that, but it gives you a moment to pause of wondering, if you didn't have that readjustment, would your kids know you? I mean, they would know you because you're determined for them to know you, right? But maybe not in the way that they do now.
Yeah, you're so right. Yeah. The relationship that our children had with their daycare was intimidating. Right.
Right. Come on. Yep.
For them to want to hug the daycare teacher and just watch them embrace them because they missed them so much. And then to say, oh, Dad's home.
Yeah.
That's painstaking right there. Right.
Yeah.
And I know
the thing would be, Dad's home, but is Dad really home?
Right. Because
that's we're all challenged with that. Is Dad home, but is Dad present?
You're right.
And for all of us, it's this journey of, I don't think you have to have, good Lord, we don't want everybody to have those, the right turn that you guys had with health situations and whatnot to come to this. But there is a moment where we can all go, okay, if I don't do anything but just change my mindset that I'm going to be present, I'm going to be a father, or I'm going to be a mother that's present, and that is, I think that will, man alive, if we could get that to happen in our world right now, we would see so much change, and so much change in families, so much change in schools, so much change in these places. And I see that you guys do that. You try to be present, in whatever that you're doing, and it's exciting to see.
Thank you. Yeah,
it's really good.
It's awesome.
Blessing.
I love, we're all reminded because we watched you guys make how many cards for the long-term care home that your grandma was with?
Yeah, there were quite a few. I think we ended up between 75 and 80, something like that.
That's an awesome undertaking. Well, listen, we've got a few minutes left. What do you wish you could tell people? You're writing it in books. When it comes to mindset, if you strip everything else away, man, what do you wish people would really understand when they wake up in the morning with their mindset?
If there was one thing I would really like to encourage people, is to be open-minded to the possibility that there is a mindset shift needed. I am often in conversation with somebody that I recognize has a roadblock stopping them from moving forward, but then I'll ask them, so what alternative perspective are you trying to visualize this from? And I can see deer in a headlight almost. They're like, what do you mean? I need to do it this way because this is the way it's always been done, and this is what I was told I have to do, and it's going to be like that. Well, I think one of the greatest advantages that I was given early on was I was encouraged to read. And it's not a coincidence that I'm an author, and I'm not trying to just plug my books, but as well as I have a pretty extensive library here that started a collection back when I was 20 years old, or I might have been 16, 17 years old, I started reading. But by the time I was 20, I recognized that there was incredible value in being able to pick up a book like Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Happens to be a finance book. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about just reading to make money. That's not it. The principles that are available because somebody spent 30 years creating an experience that they can condense into a 100-page book is invaluable. And yet I see time and time again, people think, well, I don't want to spend $20 on a book. That author's just getting rich off me. The reality.
That's a mindset right there. That's a mindset.
Exactly, Pastor Jay. And if they could just get open to the idea that every time I pick up 31 Reasons People Do Not Receive Their Financial Harvest by Pastor Mike Murdoch, every time I pick, there's got to be a nugget in here. And if I can take that nugget and it just shifts just a wee bit of mindset, maybe I'll end up in a place where I can overcome what appears to be today's roadblocks. And one book after another, it doesn't have to be 50 books a year. I mean, just pick up a book. Be open to the possibility that you might read something that's going to change the way you look at or think about something. And that's going to catapult you to moving forward to a joyful life. That is really what I give a lot of credit to, is not that I knew everything, but at least I knew that I didn't know. And therefore I was open to learning. And I loved listening to the different pastors and each of them having a different perspective on different topics. And each time I take whatever I can, there's always something in there that just changes my mindset towards the next decision that needs to be made. And then, of course, being open to prayer and receiving a message, raised in an environment of a loving family. We went to a very established Catholic church, and really the relationship that I had with Jesus and God did not exist until I was in my late 30s. And yet I grew up in that environment where people would say, well, you're such a religious guy. That's a mindset too. And I think if you're going to really have a fulfilled spiritual life, that mind shift needs to change. So I think the books are really critical. I'm hopeful that I can contribute to some of that through the books that I've written, the books that are soon to come, the forum, and whatever else God lays out for us. I just really thank you both for allowing me to spend some time with you. It really get me excited, and I am so thankful just for everything that has happened to us. Let me just finish with this thought on perspective. About 3-4 months ago, we started to get down about this whole pandemic thing. It's getting on, and let's just move on and get over it. And Megan said to me, and you alluded earlier about the fact that we're so lucky that everybody, gets to sit around the table with our family. Megan said to me, if every generation seems to have some major event, world event, whether it's, a world war or some kind of major event, she said, what if this is our generation's major event? Do you realize that the major event that we're experiencing is telling us to be at home with the ones we love and to focus on relationships, as opposed to drafting the father figure out of the home, sending him across the planet and having to communicate via letters? When she shared that with me, it was like
Wow.
I say, I don't see a crisis here. I see a lot of pain and suffering and people that need to be helped through this. I get that. But I've been asked to spend time and focus on relationships. What a wonderful place to be. I'm sorry. And I hope nobody takes that the wrong way. I'm not saying I want this to last any longer than anybody else. I'm ready to move on. But let's focus on the joyful opportunities. And we have really been given a unique opportunity to find joy and share it with others.
I think your perspective too is something where you've decided that no matter what comes, you're going to find the joy, and that's beautiful, because oftentimes we have, and I'm even can be guilty myself. I mean, I've tried a long time to move away from those things, and most of the time I am, but there is joy because circumstances are making me joyful, right? And it's really, that's just happiness. But I love the fact that you're digging in, and even when it's difficult or whatever it would be, and you're not undermining what's happening, but you have decided to dig until you find the joy in the middle of it. And that's a mindset. And that, I think that's what all of us could probably say, Lord, we're ready for that shift. Open our eyes and see it. And I like what you said earlier, even the fact of be open to those that are around you, because the truth is that other people around you will often show you your blind spots and show you where your mindset's. Now, not that we're going to listen all the time, right? But it's a matter though of if we would just stop and go, okay, there's got to be something in here in the middle of this, and then we can shift and see something and God do something cool.
One of the things, just to end this, that I'm really trying to mindset shift. It's easy to look at problems, but in the last few days, I've just become aware of going, we're calling it joy, maybe taking a little deeper into the faith realm. Lord, where's the goodness of God in this? And I'm amazed that when I'm beginning now to ask that question, my mind is shifting to see things like you were saying, the wind, toothpick. There's some goodness of the Lord that I totally was missing. And focus on the problem? No, I want to focus now on the goodness of the Lord. The problem's still there. It doesn't necessarily go away, but you can see the goodness of the Lord weaving through it. And I think that really is, to end this, that has been your story, right? Medical emergency that turned out to be the goodness of the Lord showing you something totally different that transformed your life. Ryan, thank you for joining us. One of the things I want to commend you on is that you're such you put things into practice. So, it is, Rod, you said it too. It's great joy when I go to your house to fellowship and I see something that we've talked about on the board or a declaration. I'm like, it's so awesome to see, because a lot of people hear it, go home and forget it. But I love the fact that you try to put these things into practice. It's awesome. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of the R3 and sharing your story, your testimony, your wisdom, your mindset. We love it. And we look forward to seeing what comes next. Maybe we'll be joyful family. We'll wait and see. Maybe that was a prophetic word. So
I receive it.
Awesome. Stick around for a few minutes. We are going to say goodbye to Facebook world, if you could just stick around. But thank you guys for joining R3. We'll be back next week. And I'm looking forward to what God has for us next time. Thank you guys.
Good night.